Evan cleared his throat like he was trying to sound older than 12. I already knew something was off. He never called full team meetings unless he had a new buzzword to shove down our throats. But this time, he was standing in front of a slide deck, holding a printed statement like a kid doing book report day. My name was already on the screen. Terminated, effective immediately. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My name is Evan Taylor, he started like we didn't already know. As part of the shop's modernization initiative, we're shifting toward a leaner, tech-first workflow. That means restructuring legacy roles. He glanced at the paper like it might explain itself. I heard someone shift in their seat. Otherwise, dead silence. Laura Simmons has been a respected part of the team for over a decade, he kept reading, but her role has become, outdated. We're prioritizing adaptive systems and modern workflows. This isn't personal. It's about relevance. Relevance. I felt it like a punch. I didn't even blink, but inside, something snapped hard and fast. 12 years, hundreds of builds. I led the custom diagnostics stream, created half the calibration standards they still used, and now I was being dumped like a used oil filter by a guy who couldn't even pronounce half the tools in the bay. I looked around, not a word. Not from Sean, who I trained on his first rebuild, not from Marcy, who once called me the backbone of the floor. No one even made eye contact. Evan clicked to the next slide like we were done here. HR walked in. Janice, holding a sad little folder and that fake-ass neutral face. "Your badge has been deactivated," she said, not looking up. "We'll escort you out now." I didn't speak. I just stood. My palms were cold, but my spine locked in place. I picked up my water bottle, left my notebook. Nobody moved. Nobody stopped me. As I walked out, I heard Evan behind me, still going on about cloud-based optimization and scalable restoration models, like he was pitching to Shark Tank. The kid could barely hold a torque wrench. Outside the bay doors, the sun hit my face, but I barely felt it. I heard the lock click behind me, badge dead. I was gone. Just like that. 12 years reduced to a bullet point and a bullshit phrase about relevance. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just stood on the sidewalk, hands clenched, heart pounding like a stalled engine. The only thing louder than the silence in my ears was the one word still ringing in my head. Outdated. I drove home on autopilot. Didn't turn the radio on, didn't call anyone. Just stared straight ahead like the road might offer a damn explanation. Inside, the house felt like drywall and dead air. I dropped my keys in the bowl, sat on the couch, and just sat there. 12 years. I hadn't taken a sick day in 4 of them. I trained half the people still working under that roof. Designed most of the system they now acted like was just some outdated junk file. Legacy mechanic. That's what he called me. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, breathing slow, trying to push the burn out of my chest. Didn't work. Eventually, I pulled my laptop off the coffee table. Old, beat-up Lenovo. I kept separate from everything work owned. They never touched it. HR might have yanked my badge, but they didn't know where the real foundation lived. I powered it on and typed through muscle memory. Custom login shell blinked alive. I scrolled through directories I hadn't looked at in months. Every piece was still there. Calibration matrices, automation blueprints, failover mapping, all of it. The backbone of the restoration pipeline? That was me. From raw sheet metal to final diagnostics, I built the handoff systems, made sure every machine spoke the same language. When Evan's uncle ran things, he let me run wild with ideas because I got results. Evan just wanted pretty dashboards. I opened the override tool. That thing was never in any official documentation. I designed it as a hard failsafe. If any of the new automation rigs started acting up mid-job, one command would lock them all down. No sparks, no shattered arms, no crushed techs, just silence. The control window popped up. Status, Live Technician ID, Simmons Laura, override enabled. I stared at it. They didn't remove me. That override linked straight into their automation hub. The scripts were embedded inside the root of the custom firmware. You couldn't just slap a fresh UI on top and expect the skeleton to change. Evan's crew had painted over the framework like a kindergarten art project. Underneath, it was still mine. I scrolled down. No access logs, no recent admin updates. They hadn't even touched the credentials, not once. I sat back and exhaled hard. They'd gutted the team. They cut the senior developer, Got rid of the floor leads who actually understood system risk. They thought the whole thing was plug and play, like dropping an engine in without checking the timing. There was no way they'd last the quarter without hitting a critical fault. I could have wiped the override, could have sent a courtesy email, could have logged in and walked them through the right decommissioning protocol. I didn't. I just stared at that blinking green light. My name in the system, still holding the whole thing together like a steel bolt in a rotted frame. Let them run it. Let them see what happens when you rip out the foundation and expect the house to stand. I closed the laptop and pushed it aside. No rage, no plans, just cold clarity. They were going to learn the hard way. The next morning, my phone lit up with a LinkedIn notification. Evan had posted a selfie in front of a whiteboard, pointing at a diagram that looked way too familiar. Launching our new streamlined vintage repurposing model, cutting-edge restoration through next-gen automation. Modern garage, our efficiency-driven. He even tagged the shop's account like it was a personal brand. I zoomed in on the whiteboard. My old diagnostic flow was still underneath, barely covered by red scribbles and renamed nodes. Adaptive torque protocol, he called it. That was my engine load balancer with a new font. He didn't even bother changing the shape of the modules. I kept scrolling. Another post. This time, a shot of the automation rig I helped prototype 2 years ago, only now with him standing next to it like he just invented it in his damn garage. Legacy systems reimagined for digital precision. They weren't legacy. They were mine. Still worked because I made them work. Then the messages started. First it was Sean. Hey Laura, don't know if you saw the new setup, but we've been having calibration drift on the Series 2 builds. Torque settings keep resetting mid-process. Sound familiar? Next was Talia from Electrical. Hey, I think they messed with your ground loop system. Motors are vibrating like crazy under load. I didn't reply, not to a single one. I just read them and let the silence speak. Then Marcy sent a link. Evan was doing a live webinar with some startup magazine. He wore a tucked-in shirt and had one of those fake coach voices, like he was selling timeshares. We realized a lot of our old workflow was bloated with unnecessary safety logic, he said, smiling like he was proud of that sentence. We trimmed all that down to give the automation more agility. The host nodded like she understood what any of that meant. They'd gutted the guardrails, yanked the grounding wires to make the engine lighter, and they were bragging about it on camera. I closed the tab. Let them brag. While they ran their mouths, I opened a fresh browser window and started building a site. Nothing flashy. Just a clean landing page, a few bullet points, infrastructure diagnostics, automation integrity reviews, fail-safe auditing, L. Simmons, an independent systems consultant. I didn't even list a phone number, just an email form. One-way traffic for now. I knew better than to launch with fanfare. I'd seen enough puffed-up idiots burn out trying to make noise instead of building something that lasted. The kind of people who post motivational quotes about disruption while the back end catches fire. I worked in silence, set up the DNS, picked a domain that didn't scream for attention, hooked it to a private email I hadn't used since college. Somewhere under all the buzzwords, my name was still holding their shop together. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to warn anyone. I'd already left my fingerprints in the places they were too dumb to wipe clean. Once the site was live, I left it alone and turned back to my laptop. I spun up the sandbox I hadn't touched since last spring. My test environment mirrored firmware, automation chains, full diagnostic trees. It was identical to the setup Evan's team was using, down to the build ID tags. They didn't even bother to upgrade the core image. Just pushed out the beta config I wrote 2 years ago and slapped a new label on it. I pulled up the scripts, diagnostic shell opened in seconds. Same modules, same logic order, same bones. I traced the callouts line by line, checking for edits. They hadn't changed a thing. No root credential update. No hashed permissions, no hard-coded safety trigger removed. The emergency flags I wrote, still active, still pointing to my override. I clicked into the protocol branch. The command line blinked. Override status, engage, trigger path, system fail-safe. Root technician auth, Simmons Laura. Unreal. I leaned back and let that settle. They built a whole modern flow and never once touched the actual kill switch. It was still wrapped around the central controller, like a loaded spring. Every rebuild command passed through it. Every automation cycle relied on it not tripping. They had no idea they were one malformed command away from shutting down the entire floor. I ran a diagnostic sim, fed in one of the newer scripts they demoed in that webinar, same one Evan called leaner and smarter. Watch the system chew through it. The logic failed at calibration step 3. Mismatch error. Safety protocol caught it immediately. System halt. Emergency override engaged. On my screen, the whole virtual floor froze. Rig stopped mid-rotation, wrenches locked, lift arms locked, total freeze. If they push this exact version live in the garage, lights out. Mid-demo, mid-build, mid-whatever. That override wasn't sabotage. It wasn't even a secret. It was just structure, designed to keep someone from losing a hand when a script went sideways. And they built their whole rebrand on top of it like it didn't matter. I could have warned them, could have reached out, sent a line of code, told someone to pull the brake before they went full speed into a wall. But I didn't. I just sat there in the quiet, watched the simulation freeze again and again. They didn't ask questions when they kicked me out, didn't debrief, didn't audit the system, didn't wonder what else I'd touched, just fired me like I was dead weight and left the wiring exposed. Let them run it. Let the system do what it was built to do. I shut the laptop and slid it to the edge of the table. No backup plan, no second thoughts. Entropy didn't need help. The next morning, I got the email. Subject: excited to see what Evan's done with the place. It was from Alan Dorsey. Quiet guy, deep pockets, old school investor who used to walk the floor back when I first started. He'd been impressed by the calibration engine I built from scratch. Told me once I was the only tech in the building who actually understood time. Then he vanished after the third round of management changes. Now he was back, or at least watching. Attached was a link to a live stream. Launch event modern restoration workflow, powered by innovation. Open to press, investors, vendors, and apparently anyone with the link. I clicked it. The stream went live with a countdown and an overproduced promo reel. Quick cuts of wrenches moving in slow motion, sparks flying, paint guns spraying, all overlaid with phrases like data-driven performance and agile restoration for the next generation. Bullshit slogans paired with my rig in the background. Still working. Still mine. The feed cut to the main stage. A temporary setup inside the garage, lights mounted on trusses, rented folding chairs lined up in front. It looked like a high school talent show with corporate sponsors. Evan walked out to applause, wearing a slim-fit button-down and his smug startup grin. I didn't even flinch. "Welcome, everyone," he said into a headset mic. "Today marks the official rollout of our next-gen platform for legacy restoration. This is a bold step forward, where old craftsmanship meets modern efficiency." Behind him, 3 giant screens lit up. I leaned in. They were using my schematics, my diagrams, dead on, only now with fake gradients and new labels slapped on top like nobody would notice. The crowd didn't. They clapped. I scanned the screens, saw the interface flicker once. The left panel lagged before loading the animation. Just a hiccup, but I caught it. Then another lag. Half-second delay on the equipment feed. My eyes locked in. They were piping live automation telemetry through the same interface shell I built. Overclocked, overlayered, overhyped, and already groaning under pressure. I opened my laptop, not to touch anything, just to check. Override, live system load, 94% input, delay, 2.3 seconds, spike error, flag, unacknowledged protocol mismatch. They were getting closer to the cliff. Evan kept talking, full of fake energy. "We've left behind the outdated systems that held us back. No more redundant logic, no more bloated workflows. What you'll see today is clean, modern, and fully optimized." He turned, gesturing to the rig behind him, a '69 Camaro perched on a lift. "We're about to run our first fully automated rebuild cycle. Live, in front of you all." The audience leaned forward. Phones came out. People started live streaming the live stream. In the corner of the screen, I saw the system queue light turn red for a second, then back to green. Another spike. My override hadn't tripped. Not yet. But it was watching. Waiting. They'd built their whole house on a loaded circuit, and now they were flipping every breaker at once, showing it off like a new toy. I didn't touch a thing. I just watched the crowd grow. The chat filled up. Investors, fans, competitors. People praising the look of the garage, the interface, the efficiency. Meanwhile, the edges of the screen started glitching. The build control panel lagged half a second behind Evan's hand gesture. He didn't notice. They never do, until it's too late. Evan raised his hand like he was about to launch a rocket. We're initiating the automated rebuild cycle now, he said. Watch closely as our system brings this classic back to life with zero manual input. He tapped the control tablet. For half a second, everything held. Then the screen behind him glitched hard. Frame skip, screen tear. One of the feeds freezing completely. The lift bucked. Not violently, but just enough for every trained eye to spot it. The robotic torque arm stalled halfway down and locked in place. Motors spun, but nothing moved. One of the overhead lights blinked out. The room paused. Then the power dipped. Just a flicker, but enough to pull gasps from the crowd. Evan turned to the control screen, tapped again, then again. Nothing. Behind him, the interface froze completely, and then it hit. A massive red screen took over all three displays. Unauthorized diagnostics, override technician, L. Simmons, 30 feet tall. My name, my full name, right over his shoulder. Evan backed up like someone had fired a gun. People in the audience stood up. Some pulled out phones, others just stared. The camera crew panned too fast, caught one of the engineers sprinting across the floor. The safety locks engaged. Mechanical clack sounds echoed through the building. The car lift locked in place. The rig arm slammed into neutral. One of the machines threw a warning light. Hydraulics suspended mid-movement. Complete system halt. Every tool, every robotic handler, every subroutine, dead. Evan's mic crackled. This is a minor system issue. It's part of the fallback diagnostics protocol. No one believed him. The camera cut to the far corner, where two engineers were shouting, pointing at tablets, typing into consoles that weren't responding. In the chat feed, messages exploded. Who the hell is L. Simmons? Wait, override? Was this hacked? She's in their system? I leaned back, glass of wine in hand, and took a slow sip. Didn't touch a damn thing. They'd triggered it themselves. The moment they pushed live with that half-baked code and skipped the safety validations, the system did what it was built to do. Shut down before something got crushed or burned or snapped in half. That override had one job: protect the shop from itself. They'd ignored it. They thought speed meant ripping out the brakes. Now the whole garage sat frozen under a giant red screen with my name on it, pulsing like a heartbeat. Evan turned to the crowd. We're addressing the issue. There's no threat. Just a legacy function. Leftover code. It's nothing. His voice cracked on the last word. Legacy. He called me that like it was an insult. And now his shiny new empire was locked behind a legacy mechanic's name. They didn't replace me. They just tried to paint over me. And now the paint was peeling off, live, in front of every investor, vendor, supplier, and wannabe tech visionary who thought they could buy relevance with enough keywords. The chat was still going. The audience had gone dead quiet. Evan stood there, frozen like the machine behind him, while 30 feet above his head, my name stayed lit in blood red. I sipped again. Didn't smile, didn't cheer, just watched. By the next morning, the internet had already chewed through the launch event and spit out bones. First it was screen recordings, then it was memes. Evan's blank face with "Legacy Detected" in bold red letters underneath. A freeze frame of him staring up at the override screen like it had just whispered his funeral date. Someone looped his stammering, "It's nothing" line over elevator music. And then they started tagging me. Who's L. Simmons? She built the original system? Why is her name still in the code? My inbox, dead for days, suddenly kicked back to life. The contact form on my site got its first hit, then another, then 5 more, then 20. Most were short. Saw the stream. Can we talk? Do you consult on live diagnostics? Are you available for a safety audit? I didn't answer right away, just watched the queue grow. By noon, someone from Iron River Performance, the shop that used to ignore my emails, reached out. Laura, we saw what happened. We've had concerns about our automation expansion. Let's talk. Even better, Alan Dorsey messaged me directly. Just wanted to say that was the cleanest system shutdown I've ever seen. Subtle, precise, elegant. Let me know when you're available. Evan, meanwhile, was drowning in his own spin cycle. He went live again on LinkedIn, voice tight, forehead shining. There was a minor legacy bug in the system, he said. Totally harmless, just an outdated protocol that hadn't been cleaned out yet. We're addressing it. Didn't matter. The forums lit up. Engineer groups, dev threads, auto tech circles. People were tearing through the source clips, breaking down the command stack on the override screen, screenshotting the red flags they'd missed in earlier demos. One thread had over 300 comments in 2 hours. Why would her technician ID still be active? Did they even audit the code before launch? That system didn't get hacked. It did exactly what it was told to do. By the time I checked my analytics, the site had gone from 11 visits to just under 1,000. Messages came from real shops, real engineers, people who actually read the code and respected what it did. Not flash, not buzzwords, just control. I left the homepage up, left the form open, didn't change a thing. They came anyway. Evan could run a dozen interviews, blame legacy junk, or technical clutter all he wanted. But the industry had seen it, live, loud, and in full color. My name, my system, still standing. By the end of the week, the requests didn't just come in, they stacked. Infrastructure reviews, safety audits, diagnostics tuning. Half the messages opened with some variation of, "Saw what happened. We want to avoid that." I barely touched the site, but traffic kept doubling every day. So I raised my rate. Quietly, no announcement. Just updated the footer to $600 an hour. The requests didn't slow down. If anything, they got more specific. One from a Texas automation group said, "We don't know where our failsafes end. Can you trace them?" A classic rebuild team out of Pennsylvania wrote, "We need to rework our calibration flow. Yours still holds up." No fluff, no marketing lingo. Just people who actually wanted the work done right. I switched the site to Autobook, set a cap on weekly hours, turned off notifications. I didn't need pings to remind me what I already knew. They'd finally figured out where the backbone came from. Then the message came in from Liam. Kid I trained when he was barely out of trade school. Used to call me ma'am until I made him stop. "Now I get it," he wrote. "You built everything." I stared at it for a second. Thought about replying, didn't. There was nothing to say. I moved on to the next inquiry in the queue. Company name jumped out at me. Rydell Motors. I'd sent them at least 4 emails over the years. Never got a single response. Not even a rejection. Just silence. Now? "Hi, Laura. We're working on integrating automated diagnostics for our upcoming rebuild line. We'd like to discuss system design options. Are you available for an initial review?" I didn't hesitate. "Sure, $600 per hour. Paid. Clicked send. No pitch, no introduction, no smiley face at the end. Just the rate, the line. And I knew they'd agree, because now they had a reason to listen. 2 days later, the garage finally released a statement. The disruption during our live demonstration was caused by legacy code that hadn't been fully cleared from early development cycles. While the incident appeared dramatic, at no point was safety compromised. We are committed to modernizing all aspects of our infrastructure moving forward. Translation: blame the old code, pretend it wasn't the thing that kept their floor from burning down. A follow-up press release called it outdated safety logic. Not one mention of the override that caught the failure. Not one line about the person whose name froze their system before it shattered in front of investors. I didn't comment, didn't share, didn't even open the article. Let them spin. I spent the afternoon in sweats, on my couch drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The window was open, and my cat was pawing at the edge of a coaster on the table. One lazy swipe, and it clattered to the floor. She jumped like she'd set off a bomb, then bolted across the room. I actually laughed. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a real breath. First one in weeks. Then the laptop pinged. New booking. 2-hour safety infrastructure review. New booking. 1-hour emergency diagnostic consult. I didn't even check the names. Didn't matter. The work was flowing. No pitching, no fighting for space. Just steady demand for what I'd already built. For the foundation they never understood. For the thing they stripped out without reading the wiring diagram. They thought removing me made them modern. But they didn't know what I'd buried in the walls. What held the thing upright? What kept it from buckling every time they pressed a little too hard on the gas? I never sabotaged them. I just didn't save them. And now, I wasn't anyone's fallback. Wasn't someone's employee. Wasn't the quiet tech at the corner desk holding the place together without recognition. I was the expert.